I am in autumn.
Interesting.
Oh yes, kiddos. Hey ho, I'm Rachel, this is Missy, and we're Miss Daisy Sewing, and it's autumn. So this video should be dropping in or around Mabon, which is the autumn equinox on the pagan calendar, and the official start of autumn. It's going to be a bit of a 2-in-1 video this week. Firstly, we're going to talk about sort of window dressing, which is something I started to do following COVID, and also a big spring clean, because no matter the season, my loft always needs tidying. So firstly, window dressing. I've got quite a large window in my living room, and we always did dress it, for want of a better word, over Christmas. Somebody, not a million miles from here, doesn't like Christmas trees. It's just a hangover from her being abandoned at Christmas time. So rather than having a tree, we've always just made the effort to make our window look Christmassy. And then following COVID, where people were encouraged to put rainbows in the windows and teddy bears and all that sort of thing, we ended up sort of making seasonal windows and never really dropped the habit. It makes us happy, it does no one harm, so it's just something we've just carried on. I've actually just dismantled our summer window, which is in this tote bag here. If I give it a wee shake out, just to show you some of the stuff we kind of put in them. Oh, and it's all a mess here. So we've got here, this is our summer window, so it's all beach themed. So we've got some little plushies, so some are bought, some I made. There's a little crab that I made, and there's a little matching seahorse. I've also got some bunting, which spells summer. So this is actually one of the first projects I did on my embroidery machine. So we've got summer, if it continues. There we go, summer, which goes up in the window. And then I've also got, my sister made me these really cute little fish. Well, they're all tangled up. No! She made me these really cute little fish, which I've then put into like a little garland. I will tidy them properly. There we go, nearly there. So these are a little garland that then hangs along the window with these cute little fish. Oh, and a cross-stitch summer house, randomly. As I said, this is something we've kind of been building since COVID. So we've got random bags and bundles all over the loft of these different parts of different windows, and it's all just become really chaotic. So the plan is to make some nice tote bags with each month written or embroidered on them, and then as I'm filling in the tote bags, I can get the loft reorganized, because like I said, it is a state up there. At the same time, I have realized I don't have a September window, I don't have an autumn window. I've got Halloween, I've got winter, Christmas, but no September window, and I think that needs to be rectified. So the first thing we're going to do is some more bunting, similar to what I've done with my summer one there, but we're going to spell out autumn. And from there, I don't have any ideas. So I think it's going to be a raid around the loft, see what sort of autumnal things I have kicking around, and maybe make like some leafy garlands or something. We'll figure it out, so just stick in there and we'll get there. But first of all, we're going to do those tote bags, I think. A big shout out to Cindy's Embroidery. They've got a phenomenal free library of alphabets, which really helped with this project. They also have a shop too with some beautiful designs I will definitely be purchasing in the future. Once I picked a bunch of alphabets I liked, I then started to assemble the word for each tote bag. As previously, I'm using the software that came with my embroidery machine, and we're just simply importing in the first letter in the nice fancy alphabet, and then typing out the rest of the word in just the basic New Times Roman that comes with the software. Part of this project was me endeavouring to use up scraps. So here I am using up a load of old curtains that I had hanging around in the loft, and I'm cutting out large rectangles that are 16 by 18, and then at the end cutting out strips about 3 inches wide from the remaining scrap to make some straps for the individual bags. I just rinsed and repeated this process with all of the big bits of random fabric I had lying around until I had enough for one bag for each month. And then it was onto the embroidery machine. Of course I had to start with September. Whilst the embroidery machine was chugging along, I was starting to coordinate cutting the lining and that kind of stuff. So I'm really pleased with how all of the bags have turned out so far. The eagle-eyed amongst you might have noticed that there's 13, and that's because Remembrance Day and November have their own bags. The reason for that is my remembrance window typically goes up until the 11th or Remembrance Sunday, whichever happens to be later in the month, and then I will swap it into a more sort of wintry themed window. No real reason why, it's just kind of what I've ended up doing, so I figured since I know that there's a separate window, let's just make a separate bag. I had planned on a bit of a tutorial with this where I would show you step by step on a individual bag, but at the same time I think it might be fun to show you guys how I go about doing a mass bulk project like this. I'm making 13 bags, the process is the same, and I effectively just turn it into a production line. My first step is going to be doing all of the straps, so we'll go to the machine, we'll do that first, and then I will explain the next step. The first thing I'm going to do is trim the straps down for each of these bags. I don't have a specific length I'm cutting, I'm just going with vibes and what I've got available. I actually did run out of the strips that I'd made and just raided the loft to find some random odds and ends of like webbing that I had kicking around. Now this step does feel counterintuitive. We're going to pin in where we want those straps to be, and you can see here I'm trying to line them up so that both the front and the back have them in the same place. After that I'm going to put on the lining piece, right sides together, and then pin those straps in place. I then repeat this process for a further 25 times and just get all of the bags done. It's back to the sewing machine and I'm stitching together that edge that we pinned. I'm taking care not to hit the pins with the sewing needle as we go across, but I am wanting to make sure that I do catch the handles in that seam. I hope this is the point where you can understand what I'm doing when I originally sewed the lining to the outside part of the bag. We're placing those two parts right sides together, and then the plan is to sew along the edge, leaving a gap open on the lining side. And here I am just sort of working my way around all of the different bags, keeping that bottom part open. The bag is then flipped right sides out through that little hole in the bottom. You could make a neater finish by trimming the corners, but for this case I wasn't too worried about that. I'm using a zigzag stitch here to seal that hole in the bottom. However, if it was to be a gift, I would hand sew that for something a little bit more invisible. Following closing the bottom of the bag, I am then top stitching around the top, taking care to go back and forth over the handles just to make sure that everything's nice and neat and solid. And then we just keep doing those same things again and again until they're all done. Whilst I was sewing all the bags, I didn't have my embroidery machine idle, and I actually embroidered all of the letters for my autumn banner. I did some really basic applique for these and then trimmed out the excess around the letters. I just used some paper as a template to get the bunting into a nice pennant shape, and then just top stitched down the edges to keep it nice and neat. So I've got loads of these leaves, and I'm just going to top stitch them onto a ribbon to make a garland. So we'll just get onto that now. I was originally going to just leave this as a garland in and of its own right, but I then decided to add the autumn bunting onto it, and I think it really paid off and just looks so autumnal. So really pleased with the garland so far. Putting the autumn onto the leaves was definitely the right choice, but it's still missing a little something. So I think what we're going to do is make some little tiny pumpkins. And the way we're going to do that is with some fabric that I've got here. It's just a nice sort of scrappy golden sort of plushy fabric here. and we're basically going to just cut circles and then sort of stuff them and gather them. So let's just get on with that and see how they go. I just used a side plate for this, and they came out sort of palm-sized, the little pumpkins. As you can see, I'm just tracing around the plate and trying to get as many circles out of this bit of fabric as possible. From there, I'm just doing a gathering stitch all the way around the edge of the pumpkin and pulling it like a big drawstring into a little pouch. I actually used up loads of sort of offcuts of fabrics from this project to stuff the pumpkins, which also helped to add to the stash busting element. I then used some embroidery thread to tie around the pumpkin to give it that sort of segmented look, and that really paid off actually. That really did make it look like a pumpkin rather than just a little squashy blob. I mean, how cute is this, guys? I then gathered up a bunch of nice autumn animal plushies that I had lying around and used that to decorate the final window with the bunting. I've come to realise why I have so few photos of my windows, and that's that no matter the time of the day, the sun is always on the front of the window, but you get the idea. I suppose I'd best get on to tidying my loft though with those bags, so until next time, bye!